Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Before we dive into this week's dose, I want to talk real quickly about loyalty. For those of you out there that are trying to figure out how to craft a good program that gets people engaged, creates referrals, drives additional revenue for your business through your existing customers, and you've tried a lot of other solutions, there's something you need to be aware of, and that company is called Upzello. Upzello is an e-commerce loyalty, membership, and referral app that creates greater engagement with your customers by leveraging digital loyalty cards on Apple and Google Wallet. What do digital loyalty cards do? Well, basically, you're able to send a push notification right to somebody's phone. You're able to trigger a lot of different behaviors based on those things like special offers based on the location that that person is. And your actual customers will be able to use their phone and that digital loyalty card to show people and add them through their referral links right there on their phone. There really isn't another way to engage directly with your consumers on the place where they're living, their phone, in a way that drives greater engagement and sales for your business. I highly suggest you take a look at Upzello today. They're actually running a special for all of my listeners and readers here. If you use the code DRSUB, DRSUB on Upzello, I'll have a link to them in the show notes. And you can also get 25% off for 3 months. They'll set up everything free for you so you can see how it's working. And go check out my newsletter because I'm including some specials on case studies related to what they've been doing and what they've been successful so far. So highly recommend giving Upzello a try if you're looking for ways to get better at loyalty and better with engagement for your customers. Hello and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription, the podcast where we try to help you figure out all things related to D2C subscriptions. I'm really excited for today's dose because we're going to be talking about website purchase experiences, product page builds, landing pages, CRO testing, a lot of stuff as it comes to acquiring new subscribers. And for this, I am joined with a special guest today, Chase Clymer. Chase, thanks for coming on the show.
I'm excited. We've got a lot to cover, and we'll try to make it concise and very, very, educational, but I won't go too into the weeds unless, you really want me to.
Well, we do like going into the weeds here, trying to get things specific and actionable as much as we can, at least as anybody's listening or watching. It's there's only so much you can do on a podcast, right? But so Chase, you're the founder of Electric Eye, a design agency. You're the host of the Honest eCommerce podcast and also the founder of Store Tester. I'd love to hear, and for our listeners, just a little bit more about your background experience, how you came to be doing what you're doing now.
Yeah. Once upon a time, I was in a punk rock band, and it didn't pay the bills. So I learned how to make money on the internet. That's literally what happened. So I was touring the country, playing shows to like 200 people, barely, ramen budget.
Right.
That was really fun. I don't miss that at all. But while I was doing that, and then the whole time I was into music, I was also into computers, and I had built my first website when I was like 16 or something. I'm pretty sure it was like a wrestling fan website, if I'm going to be really honest with you and the listeners. But yeah, I've always been a nerd. And so when I was touring, I was always, I always had the entrepreneurial bug, and I was like finding ways to make money on the road to kind of support, trying to live that dream and trying to do the rock star thing. And so I kept kind of learning and doing more stuff. So what I was doing on the road was a lot of website builds. I was doing a lot of, I learned kind of ad strategy, Facebook ads, Google ads. I was doing magazine layouts for a rock magazine, anything to make money, right?
Right.
And as kind of the band ran its course, I started to get more and more into this like digital marketing world. It really I got bit by, honestly, optimization and like just the math behind how simple it kind of really is from a math standpoint was like fun to me, the tangible growth that you could do. So I got hooked by that. And then my business partner, Sean, and I had met when I was in the band. So we designed all the album art together. And
cool.
when the band kind of stopped, he had just left his first company. It was an apparel brand that was built on Shopify. They were pretty big. And he left there and he brought me in to help kind of lead up strategy for a lot of these builds that he was kind of bringing in. And it kind of exploded on us. Next thing we knew, we had like half a dozen brands that we were working with. It was an accidental agency through and through, right? So one day we needed a name because we had to get a tax ID because we were about to get in trouble not paying our taxes. So we made a list of like 5 or 6 metal songs that we liked, like classic 80s metal songs. And Electric Eye by Judas Priest was the one that we picked to be the name of our agency. And I'm even wearing the shirt right now. It says Electric Eye.
I love it.
Also, go look up that music video. It's hilarious. The drum riser is 12 or 16 feet in the air. It's an amazing song. But so that's where the name of the agency comes from. But yeah, we quickly narrowed in completely into Shopify. When we first started, we were a little more full service. And as time went on, we learned what we liked to do, what the best clients were, where we were the best. And so these days, we kind of only do one thing at the agency, which is design better Shopify experiences. And we do that either by migrating people to Shopify from platforms that they're not happy with, redesigning existing stores on Shopify, or just iteratively improving that experience. And that comes out in the way of like landing page builds to coincide with working with like growth marketing teams for specific incentives around offers and bundles, etc. Or that's like actual CRO stuff where we're really getting into the weeds and we're testing stuff. But at the end of the day, we're working directly with brands, making their Shopify experience better. The KPIs we really care about: conversion rate, average order value, and revenue per session.
I love that. So I'm curious, how long have you guys been building on Shopify then?
8 years, almost 9 now.
8 years.
Yeah.
I'm curious. And when you started out, were you exclusively Shopify from the beginning, or is it just something that just happened?
It took 3 months for us to just not care about any other platform.
Is it just because of how much easier it is on Shopify, or is that's where a lot of customers are migrating to? Or I'm curious.
It was the community and like the people in the Shopify community. We were noobs. We were asking a million questions. We had a partner rep at Shopify. Shout out Samantha. She's amazing. She was in our corner. She was giving us all the educational stuff that we needed. She was introducing us to other larger agencies that could help solve our problems for us. We were collaborating with so many people. And it was like I had been in technology at that point for almost a decade prior. Just never realized that communities like this existed for people to learn from each other. And I'd say this all the time. There's something about the Shopify community where it's like everybody knows there's enough work to go around and a rising tide raises all ships is like, that's the community. Right. And once we felt that, we went all in on it.
No, I really, really like that. I mean, it's interesting because one of the reasons I asked that is I was just reading a LinkedIn post from Jeremy Horowitz before we hopped on here, and he was talking about GoPuff runs their site on using Shopify Plus. And so if GoPuff can buying all these little quick foods, snacks, can run it on Shopify, why do you think you need a custom stack to run your e-commerce store? So,
ooh, buddy, I have a lot to say about a custom stack. If you want me to just go off on a tangent,
let's hear. We could talk about that. I definitely want to dive into like conversion stuff. Let's get that out of the way.
Unless you're making over $100 million a year, and I'm not trying to be like exaggeratory there. That's not a word, but it doesn't make any sense. A custom stack is so expensive to maintain. You've got such trust in whatever person or team is maintaining this thing as well. Like that is a failure point for the business if that person no longer is involved for any reason. You can argue there are some micro efficiencies involved along the way, but unless there is like some fundamental reason why your business can't work on a pre-existing solution like Shopify, and I'm obviously a Shopify fanboy, but I know that there's reasons these other platforms exist. Like if you can't build it on BigCommerce or Salesforce or Magento or Shopify, you might want to reconsider what you're trying to build, and maybe there's a reason why you shouldn't be going down this rabbit hole. I even argue that Headless was essentially a custom product. Doesn't make sense for anyone below 100 million either. Like maybe 10 million to get the efficiencies there. It's just not. It's not worth it. Even a custom website that's like beyond like using an off-the-shelf theme like below
Yeah,
$10
well, you
million,
can
I
get
don't
so
think
much.
makes
You can
sense.
get so much done with an off-the-shelf theme in like Replo, right? That's pretty just amazing. Just like,
Absolutely. Yeah, you and all this comes from a position of I want you to efficiently utilize not only your budget but your time.
right.
Like what a lot of brands don't realize when they are asking for something to be custom or unique is they're just wasting their own money and their time. So, for example, if you're building out a customed or customized designed theme, like you're probably still working off of a base framework and a base theme, but you're adding about 2 months to the project to get something that your customers honestly won't notice.
Right. Yeah, the metaphor I like to use a lot is the idea of like everybody thinks that they need Tesla, right? You need to build a Tesla car without having understood like, you know, the progression of a skateboard or a scooter or a motorcycle. Like you don't actually a lot of times know what's actually driving your business, what the engine or the fuel that's going to be driving sales. So if you're going to make huge decisions about product design and what it's ultimately this really sophisticated, complex process is supposed to be like, you shouldn't be doing that without very, very compelling reasons. I like the word you use, fundamental, right? If it's not fundamental to the purchase experience, to the retention experience, odds are that you're doing something wrong. And there's a reason why there's so many other brands that are just doing it a standard, a similar way, because that's what works.
Yeah, and it's not only that, it's when you get into these more custom projects. A lot of people, when they lean luxury, they believe they also need to be custom as well. And it's like, you can get a custom look and feel but still have something that's rather templated. And an argument there is like the further you get away from the design patterns that people are used to on the internet, the more you're actually hurting your chances of making a conversion. Because if your website's confusing, your customers aren't that excited to buy from you. Like you gotta take a step back and help them and make it easier on them to purchase. And what you were saying earlier was just all of this is just a byproduct of what actually conversion rate optimization is at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah, you're just making me think of a really quick anecdote. Is when we first launched Subscription Prescription, because of like the little pill emoji, we had red really strong in our branding. And when we were first building our website, we had red all over it. And then once you preview that, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so like gaudy and eye catching in a bad way. Like there's a reason why blues and greens do really well for trust standpoint and stuff. So it's like suddenly we're using more blues and using just some red as an accent because, you know, don't want to just shock everybody because they're not used to seeing like a really bright color like that. So that makes a lot of sense, right? Like you're trying to build an experience that people are used to. If you get too far outside of that or too fancy, you run the risk of losing, if not everybody, at least more people than you can afford to lose. So with that being said, I'd love to segue into just getting some feedback from you on, let's talk CRO in a little bit, but if you want to walk through some of the basics of like I'm thinking of this like, let's go through some just website experience and then getting into the differences between product pages and landing pages, how you like to use them, and then talk more about CRO stuff. And that can be really fluid going on there. But I'd love to hear some of your like high level insights on what makes or breaks a good website purchase experience.
Absolutely. And I'm obviously going to position this more in a way. I know the audience is a little bit more subscription brands, so right. I'm keeping that in mind here. So one of the coolest things about subscription brands is they usually have a flagship product or they have a very similar funnel for the multiple products that get on subscription.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's all kind of the same customer journey, right? And so when we're building websites and we're thinking about redesigning websites for brands that are a subscription brand or maybe they're not subscription, but they have like just a flagship product, like it's a one cool thing and then the other stuff is kind of just it's not as important. What you're really doing there is you want to get them to that product page as quick as possible and then answer all the questions that they may have about that product as simply as possible. And I really mean simply, like straightforward. Cheeky copy is bad copy because people need to understand it without like getting a joke involved. I think a lot of people shoot themselves in the foot by over overthinking their copy and making it too cute at times. And that's especially like on a product page where you're answering a serious question, like your return policy. Don't use jokes. Like, be direct and answer the question. But I'll kind of back it up, and I'll talk about
quick question on copy though too, like, because there's stuff that feels so clinical sometimes, but you're saying like not cheeky. Like, is there a middle ground where we're trying to be maybe a little bit funner on brand if we're trying to be a fun brand, or if we're trying to come off as goth or something else?
I think top of market, like I think top of funnel and even retargeting stuff, and in your emails you can be cheeky.
Okay.
But especially if you start to do customer surveys and you're interviewing your past purchasers and you're asking them like, what questions didn't our website answer, or what did you wish we told you? And they tell you like, this thing I didn't know. And you're like, well, it's on the website. It's not on the website if they didn't know. And sometimes that's because the way it is presented isn't in an intuitive, easy to understand way.
Okay, that makes sense.
But back to kind of how we think about websites at the agency. It's the homepage serves a lot of masters and it has a lot of like outs, right? So there isn't ever really one direct call to action on a homepage. You get pretty close when you have like a flagship product or a hero product, right? And that is going to be, let's go to that product, right? And if you are lucky enough to have a business built that way, there's pros and cons of all businesses, right? But if that's it, like you actually might not even need a collection page, right? You can kind of just go to your hero subscription product. You could make an argument that you don't even technically need a homepage, and you could just make the homepage that, but that's something I would absolutely test. But say you do have something like a coffee brand that has different flavors and et cetera, different co-marketing, packaging and stuff like that. So they do need a collection page, right? So, I often say like the goal of the homepage is to get them to the next step, which would be either a product page or a collection page. And then the whole goal of the collection page, obviously get them into the product page. Things that we often see with maybe larger, when brands are migrating over to Shopify or we're doing a redesign for them, is like their navigation is terrible.
Right.
And mostly because they're giving like the same amount of real estate to a link that doesn't matter versus a link that
doesn't earn them any money,
dollars a year.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so often we're doing a lot of retooling of navigations when we're working with clients and doing redesign projects. The next thing is actually collection pages are super important if you have a higher kind of SKU count on your store. You got a lot of products, right? Filtering and sorting through those products is going to, if that experience is bad, your conversion rate is definitely impacted. So
and just putting a pin in that right there, because the idea is with the collections pages, if I'm running a generic ad, say I'm selling like 50 different cleaning supplies, and I'm running an ad about how great our cleaning supplies are. It's not necessarily a specific
reviews,
product
we were
ad.
featured in Esquire, et cetera, et
cetera. We're not focusing on a single product with that ad, so we're pushing to the collections page, right? The best sellers page, right? So you're saying like making sure that it's really easy to filter those things, navigate through those products, people to search for something they might be interested in on that is a key to making a collections page.
Filtering and sorting makes or breaks that page. And so let's continue with this cleaning business, right? It's still a subscription company. They're selling you their bottle once a month or whatever it is. But on that page, there's 50 different products, right? And so you need to be able to sort by size. You need to be able to sort by price point. You need to be able to sort by what is it cleaning, right?
Right.
Like often when you're doing filters, like think about how clothes and just think about how Amazon does it. Go to Amazon and look at your products, how they have the sorting set up there, and just steal their ideas. Walmart, Target, all these people are already a step or two ahead of you. See how they're doing it, and by like filtering by solution or by end result is often overlooked for merchants or for use case. Right? It's like
that's what I love, because it's something I harp on all the time with subscriptions is like brands don't do a good enough job of understanding their use case, right? And the simplest example I harp on all the time is protein powder. Protein powder is bought by different types of very different use cases, right? Somebody's trying to gain
muscle gain,
weight weight loss, right? So you're going to are you going to sell like a pre-workout with a ton of high calorie count to somebody who's using it as a dietary supplement? No, that's not going to work. So the idea of like trying to understand that makes a ton of sense of being able to filter by use case, especially if you think about too, if you're shopping for clothes or something else, kids, sizing, things like that.
Exactly. And so filtering and sorting, we do a lot of work with that. And especially now, Shopify's built-in filtering and sorting was so bad for years. And now it is so awesome. Shopify Search and Discovery is great. If you're on a different tool, it might be worth revisiting using Search and Discovery. It might save you a couple $100 a month in subscription fees for whatever app you're using. It's pretty cool, and it's only going to get better. But we spend a lot of time re-noodling people's sorting and filtering, and all of that also builds into Shopify Smart Search, which helps with their suggestion algorithm as well. Okay. So all those tools play together. It's a lot of just tagging and Excel nonsense, but it's so worth it once you get it done.
Right. Okay. So we talked about homepage, collections page. Let's talk about product pages.
Absolutely. They're very important.
And you mentioned too, like if you have a hero product, sometimes the homepage could be essentially be a product page if you just have one,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Like could be potentially overkill. But let's just say outside of that as an exception, like walk us through product page stuff.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, like it starts with how you're representing the product, you know, the visuals, the videos, the pictures. You got to have, you know, lifestyle. You got to have, you know, on flat. You got to have in use. You got to have videos, unboxing. The more you can show what the heck this thing look, feel, touch, taste, like all of those senses on a digital experience, the less questions people are going to have about it, right? So, you know, there's the normal stuff. You want to add a cart button above the fold. Make sure you're showing social proof. You have testimonials. Put the reviews right there next to the title. But then beyond that, you're starting to get into consumer psychology, which is basically people don't buy your product because they have a fear, an uncertainty, or a doubt that product is going to solve their underlying problem. And that's why they are exploring this solution, which is your product. So now you have to start to think, put yourself in the shoes of your ideal client profile or profiles and understand, well, what are they asking themselves about this product, right? Here's an example that has nothing really to do with subscription, but it's just like, you know, if I am exploring like a high-end skincare brand and, you know, I've got vacation next week, it's like, how fast is the shipping? Will I get this product here in time? So maybe that's a motivator or an incentive that those customers want to see, is they really want that fast shipping. And they want to know it's going to get there before they travel, because they need it for their travel. Return policies are huge. Guarantees are huge. A lot of these things are just...
many of those are just table stakes now for like people are expecting that to happen, and otherwise they're not going to make a purchase. My wife reviews return policies extensively to see how those work, because she usually will buy 2-3 of something to try to see how they look or feel before she'll keep 1 or 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in clothing, people will buy their size, the size smaller, and the size above all the time.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned stuff with the pictures and the content on there. Something I feel like that Amazon does really well, but you don't see necessarily a ton, is because Amazon's so restrictive around what you can put on there, basically within their product pages. People will gamify that or game that by adding pictures with like word descriptors on them. They'll show people using it with like, you know, feels better and all this stuff around it. And I've seen that work really, really well with some subscription brands where it's like showing people using the product, showing like pictures of the benefits and using those words and stuff there. Do you see that as being something that's more effective, just putting more and more of that content out there? Because I've seen that at least on a limited amount of brands that are more successful.
Yeah, especially now we're talking about like this is an absolute advantage of having a subscription business with a flagship hero product, is you only have to do this once. So go as deep as you can and literally ask the people that have bought, why did you buy today? Like, what could we do better on our website? Email these people, call them on the phone. Like, you can even have apps pop up and ask people that are abandoning the website, like, hey, what didn't we include here that would have helped you purchase today? People will tell you. And you take all of that information and you write it out. You make a video about it. You take pictures to help tell that story. And you add all of that content into that page. The more you can help like offset these fears and uncertainties and doubts about your product on your product page, the more likely that customer is going to be to buy.
Yeah, one of the examples I like using of that all the time is from a brand called I Heart Dogs. And again, I stress too, like, you post-purchase, you should be asking questions related to like why people are excited, more about what motivated them, what they're going to use the product for, so you can get some of that stuff. But then you also, with subscriptions, we can pick up more information on cancellation, point of cancellation. So I Heart Dogs have been collecting data for a while. People were canceling because of too much product. They started calling people, getting into why do you have too much product? It's because they're selling pet food, right? So people have different sized dogs. So then they go back, and this kind of brings up this custom versus template off the shelf. They start changing whatever they had templated before to make it really, really simple to select the dog size. And then based off of the dog size selection, it changed the amount that it like preset for you to order for that dog. And doing that increased conversions on that like 30%, and it improved retention by 40%. So the idea is like just paying attention and then building a slightly like, I'm not sure how much to order because of my dog. Here's how much you order based off of your dog size. And that just, made things that much better for them.
Exactly. And it sounds simple, but when you're a brand, you're, running a brand, you're wearing a million hats. Sitting down and interviewing customers is hard to make time for.
Right.
It's also identifying those patterns, because it's not, you're not going to hear it once and have that aha moment. You have to hear it a couple times in a couple different ways to be like, here's the pattern, or see it a couple different times in a couple different ways using one of my favorite tools in the world is like heat mapping software. Heatmap.com is great. Hotjar is pretty cool. There's a bunch of other ones out there. But heatmap.com is one that has brought revenue into the heat map, so you can see how much money certain parts of the websites that have hit the viewport are actually responsible for. But it's just a tool. It's not going to tell you what to do yet. I know they're trying to put AI into it and make it do that, but it's just a tool to help you understand what people are doing, customer behavior on your website. And I guess for those that are unfamiliar with what a heat map software does, it's basically like a glorified screen recorder that's always on your website that shows where people's mouse or fingers are touching. And it records like all of the sessions or a sample of the session if you want, but then it shows you where the hot parts of it are. It kind of looks like a storm overlay. If you know how like the storm is more stormy in certain parts, it gets more red. But it shows you all these things. So it shows you, like on desktop especially, people will read with the mouse and it'll show you what headlines they're responding to. Or sometimes it shows you what's broken on your website, like this button doesn't work, or people are assuming this is a button and it's not. Maybe make it a button. So reviewing heat maps and user recordings is definitely something super useful to do. Almost every software has something that's called a rage click, and it basically is just people are mad that something's not working or isn't working the way they think it is, and they'll like click a couple of times, and that gets segmented off into its own little spot. And so you just go review all the rage clicks, and it gives you quite a few things to test or to fix.
I love that. Okay, cool. I'm curious, when do you suggest brands start implementing landing pages? And if you want to explain for our audience, what do you see as the difference between a landing page and a product page as well?
Absolutely. So a product page is pretty templated in kind of the e-commerce world. You can get a little bit fancy with it, but for the most part, a product page is pretty generic in its goal of getting you to add this thing to the cart. It can have a lot more supporting kind of stuff with it, and a lot of the content that is found on a product page will also be found on a landing page. But the difference between a product page and a landing page will probably, the difference probably highlights it a bit more. With a landing page, it's exact goal is one goal, which is to get you to purchase that product or that bundle or that specific offer. And so how that is different than a product page is there's a lot less ways for you to move forward in that experience that isn't buying that thing. So they often don't have a full top level navigation. The footer is often also stripped out. Any links that take you elsewhere outside of that landing page experience where the next step needs to be add to cart or buy, oftentimes it skips the cart and it goes right into the checkout. The one and only goal of a landing page is to get you into the checkout flow.
What are some of the tools that you see be effective for landing pages? Like I've seen stuff like there's a lot more storytelling. Often you're embedding more content like videos, right? You can prioritize reviews, your customer testimonials. You can get, I mean, there's really a lot you can do with it.
Yeah. Testimonial, like, all right. So when we're building out landing pages for our clients or like helping to optimize landing pages for our clients, we're asking a million questions. We're like, when's the last time you were featured in the press? What was it? Give it to us. Do you have any guarantees? Do you have anything that's unique? What's this thing you're talking about? There's some specific marketing language you're using here. What does that mean? Can you prove it? Do you have independent result? Like just the more and more and more information that you can put on these landing pages to help people understand what it is you're talking about that's unique to that product. You want to talk about the benefits. You want to talk about the features. You really get in depth because these landing pages are often retargeting people that have interacted with the product on the normal website.
Right.
So it is a high intent audience looking at this. So it's really the best chance to educate them as fully as you can about everything around this product to try to get them to make that decision. I'm trying to think of a few landing pages that we built recently.
Well, I actually have some questions. I have well, they're not that theoretical because they're literally have calls with customers from today. I've got two that are doing fairly high SKU count. Both are like in the food and beverage industry. And so it's like normal purchase experience is you hit the home page and then you hit the build a bundle page, right? So like you're interested in buying, you click through, and then now you see
why
like
wouldn't you
50
just go
options.
to the bundle page?
Well, yes, one of them does go straight to the bundle page and does pretty well on that regard. But conversions overall are a little bit low. So we've been thinking through some different ideas of actually taking a landing page and taking some of our more popular like pre-built options so that people aren't going through and having to build a 20 item box. Here's a pre-built like drink option. Here's a pre-built like seafood option. And then having it be all about that type of product or that specific, like you could call it a starter kit essentially, to try to like make it simpler. And then we can make an ad and creative that does the same thing. So instead of talking about all the different food that we sell, we're talking about this and sending it that way. What I'm curious just to hear your reaction, thoughts, be careful, whatever you have in regards to that situation or scenarios.
Yeah. So a lot of awesome examples there that I can give my opinion on. And here's the caveat about everything I'm saying today and will say in the future. Test all this stuff. Don't take it as gold. But right. I hope I give you some inspiration. Now to what you're talking about. One of the biggest hurdles for brands that sell a lot of products or different products is analysis paralysis. And so that's where bundles are crucial. And when these days people often think it's always build a bundle, and that's I think you just kind of add in technology and get back to the same point of, well, I'm still confused about what I can and cannot buy. Again, you got to think your customer's dumb and drunk. You got to give it to them really easy. Right. You got to make it simple to them. So I would say that pre-built bundles is an amazing kind of head start to help these people understand that box experience. And you may not even need to have the functionality to have them swap products out if they want, but you could ask after the fact if they want to do that. But
it's a lot easier to do that now with subscription software too. Like it's really
exactly.
easy to use a bundle tool and unbundle on the back end.
And like one thing I would definitely say is you can even look at your data, and this is beyond just your specific customer here. This is for everyone listening. If you're thinking about bundles, you know you should do it, but you haven't done it. You can pull your historical order data out and put it into Excel if you want, or some other thing, and you can find what people are frequently buying together already,
Right.
and you can just build fixed bundles around those things and start to offer that within your marketing or within like a bundle collection on your navigation, or build out kind of advertising around like best-selling bundles. That's definitely something you could get done by the holidays.
And especially if you have a hero product, it's like if you have, say, 5 other complementary products, you can test different bundles with the hero product to see what people find compelling or interesting. Like you can already see what other people are buying from an order count and just start there. But I think there's a lot of interesting opportunity where you start bundling products together to see about, you can afford to give a bigger discount if you wanted to test that route. There's a lot more you can do because you can get a higher average order value. I'm curious. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Especially for brands that are playing the like paid advertising game, and that's how they're acquiring customers. Say they're spending $25 to acquire a first-time purchase of $75, but then after that, it makes it all worthwhile. If you can add to that average order value, you can increase it by, $25. That's a lot, but not impossible. You've now just added $25 of additional profit to the bottom line at the end of the day.
Right.
It's almost that simple because you're not acquiring another customer, and the box isn't much more expensive to ship.
Right. And it's an intent thing too. Like, take that protein powder example. If somebody's going to buy creatine with it, they're much more likely to use both products than they would if they're just buying one by itself. That's what we like on the retention side.
You can sell somebody, the stickier your offer is.
Okay, cool. All right. So this has been fantastic. I'd love to segue just a little bit into, because we still have some time left, talking about conversion rate optimization. So one, for everybody listening or reading at home, explain CRO, and then also like introduce us. I mean, again, I'm going to ask you some CRO tips about how you guys, and we'll get into store tester as well. But yeah, first start with, what is CRO? Because it gets seen and heard and used all the time.
Yeah. So CRO, it stands for conversion rate optimization, and it is the worst named KPI in the world. It's definitely a misnomer. So what this comes from is a conversion is getting it comes from the tech world and from like almost pre-internet shopping. It's a conversion was getting a user to take the action that you wanted, right?
Yeah,
so if that action was getting a button click, if the user clicked that button, you had one conversion on that goal, right? But as things kind of evolved and e-commerce kind of became more popular, like it got a little, their lines got blurred there, but like you can do conversion rate optimization for just about any KPI on your store. You can optimize for add to carts. You can optimize for form submissions. And that's exactly what the whole lead gen world is about. It's for form submissions. You can optimize for page views. So, CRO is the worst name ever. But in the context of what most CRO companies in e-commerce are doing, they are optimizing for conversion rate, but also they're optimizing for average order value, revenue per session, and when they're working with brands like subscription, like churn is something they're optimizing for to decrease churn, not increase churn, obviously.
Right.
So conversion rate optimization is basically making the user do what you want. But usually the way you're going to get there is through like iteratively testing stuff, trying things, learning from them, adding those learnings into the website. And it's very much a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
You see these case studies of these crazy results, but it's usually like after that's the thing that worked after the last 10 times of trying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and can often be completely and totally counterintuitive to what you think might work. I'm curious, what are some of the places where you start? Because again, I know that there's so many things you could test or change. And so like with subscriptions, we often try to just think about, okay, what are the places I want somebody to focus on testing? What are some of the things that you suggest from a CRO standpoint of like, where's the low hanging fruit, or the don't waste your time over here, just focus on this area of things to be testing?
Yeah. Closest to the money, closest to the conversion,
Okay.
right? So that's going to be in your checkout, and on Shopify, get on Plus and start adding social proof, your testimonials, your return policy, upsells right in your cart. And if you need help with that, please reach out. But Yeah, right. It's the closest to the money is what I always say. And then you just kind of back up from there. So what's going to happen before the actual checkout is going to be the product page. Also, caveat, post-purchase, there's a lot of opportunity to raise average order value on post-purchase as well. People already bought, try to sell them another pair of socks or something. You'll have some people that say yes. And then that's, again, just raises your average order value. That's making you more money. But product page, for sure, is where a lot of the time is spent outside of checkout. With that, product page has a few different masters, kind of like the home page. So that's where a landing page strategy might come in. And you mentioned earlier a great example, protein powder. At the end of the day, it's the same protein powder, but it's got different ideal customer profiles, right? So we'll come in and we'll work with clients sometimes and we'll build out a landing page template. And the way we do it is we build everything in OS 2.0 within Shopify's exact framework. We don't use any landing page builders. We don't use any extra software. Everything's right there in the thing because it makes it easier for our customers to do stuff. And the softwares that we use for split testing integrate seamlessly with Shopify, and it's kind of the way it builds themes as well. So we'll build out a landing page template and iterate on basically the product page from there, but we'll have probably 3 different unique landing pages that speak to the things that each of those customers care about. One customer cares about losing weight. One customer cares about gaining weight. One customer only cares that is the healthiest option in North America, right? So you write those stories and explain that to those customers on those landing pages, and then it kind of push it up the marketing funnel to the retargeting efforts, to the customer acquisition efforts. So, the customer that cares about it being healthy, that retargeting ad speaks to it being healthy, that customer acquisition ad speaks to it being healthy at the top of the funnel as well. You're going to see a lot better results when you start to match the offer to the customer profile instead of going like shotgun blast. I'll pause there. I've just been rambling.
No, I think that's fantastic. And honestly, I was sitting here thinking, I've talked to a lot of CRO people before. You might be the first one who ever mentioned about pushing that back up the marketing funnel and leveraging retargeting ads for making that work.
We're partnering with a bunch of growth marketing agencies. So we're going in like, hey, what ads are resonating? We're like, cool, where's that on the landing page? And we're just, it is hand in hand, and those efforts are super exponential. And I would say right now, make sure you have team members or contractors or consultants or agencies, whoever you're working with, like they should be friendly with the other teams, and they should be working collaboratively to make your brand more money and not like fighting over their piece of the pie.
Well, I literally, the calls I mentioned, the 2 calls I did today were actually with the growth partners of the clients. The clients weren't even on the call. It was just me connecting with the growth partner to learn more about what some of their strategy is, what we're working on, and how they can play together, which I think is, again, kind of makes the most sense, especially when you're trying to figure out new funnels. They're trying to increase conversions. I'm trying to increase LTV. Like we want them to be conversions of high LTV customers. So that makes a lot of sense. So tell me a little bit more about Store Tester then, because I know that's a newer project, but is kind of born out of this effort around CRO.
Yeah. So I alluded to it earlier. Electric Eye basically does 2 things. We're either doing like ongoing maintenance and optimization for brands on retainer, or we're building like a website where a net new theme is like the result. And so within our retainer stuff for the last couple of years, we've been getting more and more nerdy about conversion rate optimization, about the ideas of testing what we're doing to proving it's correct, or learning why that assumption might have been a little bit off base. And so these days we are building out these changes, these iterative changes for our clients, and split testing them against the existing website to make sure the changes we make are actually impacting the website the way that we want to. And so Store Tester came about because we kind of wanted to take that offer a little bit more wide and speak more to it. So Store Tester is basically a done-for-you conversion rate optimization service for Shopify merchants, focusing on the KPIs I talked about a lot today, increasing conversion rates, higher average order values, improved revenue per visitor. And we believe so much in what we're doing here. We'll launch the first test for free for qualified brands. But it's from ideation all the way through implementation. It's design, development, strategy, testing, and implementing on that. It's a monthly subscription plan. We're happy to go month to month. If you like saving money, you can kind of sign up for a bit more. The prices are right on the website, storetester.com. I'm just trying to get more visitors there. So I'm going to leave
I'm going to put a link to it in the show
to
notes for sure, especially because you've got that amazing offer with like your first test done free for you.
Yeah. And just to lay it out there, basically to hit statistical significance, you need to have a bit of volume on the website. So if you're doing over $5 million a year, you're on Shopify and you're on an OS 2.0 theme, we'll dive in and we'll launch your first test for free. You'll get to know how we work. We'll get to know if you're a psychopath or not, and we'll go from there.
It's always so funny. Like, we're going to do this audit so we can both learn what it'll be like working together. Because from the brand side,
I've been in the
agency
like game for way too long. It's very fun.
That's fantastic. Okay, so as we're kind of getting close to like wrapping up a little bit here, I'm curious from any design or CRO insights or tips related to subscription brands, either products you've worked with or things that you think are compelling. Oh, and I almost forgot. I'll ask this too about what you think about quizzes as part of that purchase experience and stuff. Do you guys get into that very much, or what do you think of those?
Yeah, so we were talking about landing pages a second ago, and I really kind of honed in on the idea of like a hero style landing page. But there's like two other landing pages that kind of really work in the direct consumer world. One is quizzes, like you talked about, and they're fantastic. You get that first party data, you utilize it throughout the rest of the marketing funnel and email retargeting, texting. You can even use it with it to segmenting up your ads based upon all that stuff. They work great. Especially the people that fill out a quiz are just way more likely to buy, right? And then the other style landing page, which is a lot more content heavy and takes a lot more strategic mind and probably assistance from a pro copywriter, would be the concept of like an advertorial landing page,
right?
Which is more of a long form content, kind of journalistically done, that talks about your product. And a lot of brands do this in a way of like utilizing Shopify's blog and talking about the product in a sense on that blog. A good example would be like doing a holiday gift guide for a clothing brand or something, and like maybe featuring some other brands you're friendly with, but your product is also featured. And you can add some extended functionality into these places where like you have the add to cart button right there within the blog to trigger the side cart to get them on their way to buy that thing. It's a little more interesting way to approach kind of those journeys, but it really works well for some items.
Okay. Yeah. And then again, finally, any other ideas or insights you have for subscription brands? I do love you breaking down the different types of landing pages we've talked about. Thank you.
Yeah. So for subscription brands, I know everybody wants them to sign up for the right off the rip.
Yeah, we would love that, but it's not always likely.
Yeah. But I still think you need to have the downsell offer of the trial. If you don't want to do a trial, maybe build a separate product that is just a trial as a one-time purchase. There are a lot of missed opportunities to upsell like a single to. I think one thing everyone listening should do if they do offer like a single purchase is they should have the automatic upsell from a single purchase to subscription in the cart, like the side cart, in checkout and post purchase, and you can do custom deals for all of those. And if your software doesn't support that, there are softwares that do.
Right.
If your team doesn't know how to do it, we know how to do it. Hit us up. But that right there will help increase your kind of churn. And then this kind of lends into your kind of retargeting strategy. People that are doing the first one-time purchase, retarget them after the fact if they did not take you up on that offer. 2 days later, a week later, whatever, figure out that strategy and test it to try to turn that one-time purchase into a repeat purchase. And then if they aren't, ask them why. Like what was the reason? Learn from it. Build that into that product page, and hopefully convert a little bit more.
Yeah, that's another usage I love of post-purchase surveys as well. Like like no commerce allows you to do this is segment whether somebody had a subscription or not, and then ask them. what kept you from subscribing today, right? Or what kept you from buying this today? Okay, cool. Chase, thank you so much for coming on the show. Again, as a recap for everybody that's been listening or paying attention, if you're looking for some CRO services, if you're on Shopify using OS 2.0 and doing 5 million a year, you can get your first test done for free at storetester.com. If you're looking for migrations, website builds, redesigns, all that good stuff, hit up Chase at Electric Eye. I'll have the site. Is it electriceye.com? Is that right?
Electriceye.io. They want way too much money for the .com.
Yeah. Okay. We'll have a link to that as well in the show notes. Chase, and where can people? Oh, and then also you got the podcast, Honest eCommerce. What's a great way for people to connect with you? Is LinkedIn, Twitter, or just going through
LinkedIn,
one of those sites?
I would say is the best, or you can just email me, chase@electriceye.io. But I do post the podcast shorts on LinkedIn daily. HonestEcommerce.co for the podcast. I'm interviewing a brand founder probably once a week, kind of telling their story, kind of from ideation of the product all the way through kind of what's going on now and how they kind of found those customers and scaled it. And those are really, really fun, insightful conversations. And we do bonus episodes all the time where I have awesome subject matter experts on, like Matthew here. Also have like apps and solutions, and I don't believe in competitors, but you could argue that they've had competitors on the show. It's a great resource for entrepreneurs looking to learn more about e-commerce.
And that's one of the fun things, again, about the Shopify ecosystem, is just being able to bring together all those pieces, provide information, provide value. And yeah, for anybody listening at home, I think, again, the biggest thing I've taken from this and is always about testing. It's always about trying to find different things, but it's also about not wasting time on stuff that isn't really going to influence the bottom line. So I really appreciate your insights, Chase, your perspective here, and I hope everybody listening and reading at home has learned quite a bit, because I know I have. So that's it for this week's dose. Chase, again, thank you for coming on, and stay tuned for next week.
And one final thing, be sure to check out Upzello if you're looking for a better loyalty option for your customers. Be sure to use Dr. Sub as a code to get 25% off for 3 months and get everything set up for free for you by the Upzello team. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.